So to get started on how to make your Christmas wreath, you're going to have to gather a few materials together. And the first thing you're going to need is you're going to need your wreath ring, and you'll have to decide what size of wreath you want to make and get the appropriate size wreath ring for it. Remember, when your wreath is made up, it'll come out to about 1 inch further on either side than the size of the wreath ring once you've got all the foliage and greenery on it. You're going to need some binding wire to make your wreath, and this will help to just tie on all that greenery. Or instead of binding wire, you can use twine if you like as well. I also use some Floristry wires as well, and these are good for making the hook on top of your wire frame and also for attaching cones and different materials that you might want to add to your wreath. If you want to protect the back of your door or the table surface that you're putting your wreath on, you can add some Wreath Wrap to the back, and that will just help prevent any damp moss from sitting up against your door frame. You'll need some mossing pins, which look like this, and they help to put the Wreath Wrap on and attach it to your wreath, and they also help with adding some of the oranges and other berries and things as well. You can use the wire, but quite often the mossing pins are good as well. You're then going to need all your decorations, so things like your bow, if you want to put a bow on it. You might want to put some pine cones on it. Things like dried orange slices, they look nice. Cinnamon, and I've just added a bit of twine round this and tied it onto the back, and then you can just pop a mossing pin or a bit of wire through that to attach it onto your wreath. You can buy red berries like this that can just pop into your wreath, and they've got a little bit of wire already on them to make them easy to place on. And then you're going to need to get all of your greenery and moss out of the garden as well, or buy it in. I make all of my wreaths using what I can from my garden. So from all the different trees and shrubs, I will cut foliage every year, and I will rake up moss from the garden to provide a base for it. But you can use branches off your Christmas trees. If you're trimming them, you often get rid of the lower branches. You can add them and make them into a Christmas wreath or a decoration for your house, or you can buy them from wholesalers as well if you prefer to. So the first stage in getting your Christmas wreaths made is to decide where you want to put it. Do you want to hang it on the door, or are you wanting to have it as a table decoration? And if you want to have it hanging on your door, you're going to need to have a hook on it like this. So that's the first stage in making it, is to put the hook on. And what I use for this is I use 12-inch 18-gram green Floristry wire, and I just bend it in half so that it's folded over like that, and then I get my wreath ring and I just hold it up at the top so that I've got a loop on the top there like that, and then I just pull one bit underneath like that, and I twist it round the wire on one side so it's attached on, and then I do the same on the other side. So you can see there that I've just twisting the wire round the wreath ring, and in the end you'll end up with it attached on both sides like that, and it's really secure. And then when you come to moss it, that will go over the green wire here, but you'll still have your hook hanging out the top. So to make my Christmas wreaths, I use a few different sizes. I use 8-inch rings and I use 10-inch rings like these to make my table arrangements. And then to make my actual door wreaths, I use 10-inch rings for small wreaths, and then I use 12-inch ones like this, and then I use even bigger 14-inch ones if you've got a nice large door that you want to hang a wreath from. And you have to remember that even though the ring size is a certain diameter, by the time you've added your moss and all your foliage, it is often quite a lot larger, so it might add on an extra inch to each side of your wreath. But we're going to go out in the garden now, and we're going to have a look at getting some moss for making our wreath bases. The first thing I need to do to get my wreath started is to get some moss out of our lawn. All my wreaths are moss based, and this helps to keep them really well. The moss can absorb up any fluid, and this can feed the foliage on your wreath, keeping it nice and fresh throughout the festive season. And our lawn has an abundance of moss, which means that it's never going to look perfect, but it's a great resource for me at this time of year. We've tried getting the moss out of the lawn in various ways for the wreaths over the years. I started off hand raking it, then went to the tractor, but the tractor was giving me much larger volumes but too much grass content in it. So I've gone back to hand raking, which works really well, and I just take what I need and I end up with a good few tubfuls of fresh garden moss all ready to use on my wreath bases. So we've got our moss from outside and now we want to attach it onto our wreath ring, which already has our hook on it for the door. And what we want to do now is we want to take our binding wire here and find the end of it, and we just want to attach that on to the top here. Just wind it round a couple of times to attach it just where you've put the hook. So once you have got your binding wire attached on at the top, just like that, you're ready to start adding your handfuls of moss. So when you're adding your moss and your foliage to your Christmas wreath, do make sure you protect your surfaces of your table if you're doing it inside, just so that they don't get any moisture on them. So we've got our wreath ring here with our binding wire attached, and we are just going to take a handful of our moss and hold it on just up at the hook here. And we're going to wind around our binding wire. And then you just simply take another handful of moss, add it on again. And you keep doing that all the way around your ring until you get back to the top again where your hook is. When you've got all the way around, putting your moss on and attaching it with your twine or your binding wire, then you'll have to snip off with a pair of scissors this end bit of binding wire there. So if you just leave a length long enough on it, about an inch, then you can hook that into your wreath. So just take that end bit and push it in, hide it out the way. So now you should have a wreath that looks like this, and you can just take a pair of scissors and trim around any excess bits of moss that are sticking out to make it a little bit neater, and then it'll be ready to add your foliage on. If you can't manage to get the whole of your wreath done all in one day and you just get to this stage, you've mossed up a ring, then just simply put it outside in your garden in a sheltered spot where it can still get some moisture and things in it and stay cool until you're ready to decorate it. So the next stage, once we've mossed up our rings, is to decide whether or not we want to put any wreath wrap on them to protect your door or furniture. So this is one I've done here, which has some wreath wrap on the back. And I like to put this on the ones that I sell at the moment because I don't want anybody to have a wreath that they put on their door and it is damp and marks their paintwork or their wooden furniture or their doors. So I just put that on to protect it. And you can get wreath wrap fairly easily over the internet or local craft shops. And you'll also need some 4cm mossing pins for this. You can get 3cm ones as well, and I prefer using the 4cm ones. And a pair of scissors to cut your wreath wrap. So you need to decide what the back of your wreath is going to be. So this is a plain moss wreath I've got here, and I'm just going to start adding my wreath wrap to it. So you want to take your wreath wrap and just lay it at the top where your hook is, up there. And you want to take a mossing pin like this and you just push it through like that to attach it on. And then after that, you pull the wreath wrap over and you're going to add another mossing pin in just here. And that secures that on there. Then you fold the wreath wrap back over the other way so it's overlapped. And you put another pin in over here. Same again, pull the wreath wrap back over like that and put a pin in. And back over again like that. And then you're going to do that the whole way around. When you get up to the top of your wreath and the last piece of wreath wrap to go on, you're going to need to cut it off. So just cut it off so that you've got enough to fold over for that last section there. So take a sharp pair of scissors and just slice across like that. And then you can just tuck it under that edge bit there and get a mossing pin to secure your last bit on. Like that. And now we're ready to go and add our greenery to our wreath. So we're going to turn it over and we're going to have a look at what greenery we can put on it today. So the next step in making your Christmas wreath is to add your greenery, and I do this in 2 different stages. This is my base of greenery here, which I put on first, and there's lots of cypress and cedar from my garden that goes into this, and I go around the garden and I look at all of the trees and foliage that I have and see what's going to work, and I trim parts of the trees, trying to take it from different places so that it doesn't affect the tree too much and it'll grow back really well next year. You don't want to take too many branches from one area. And I like to choose different colours, different textures, and it makes a really nice full wreath. And here's some of the things I've been cutting from the garden here, and at this stage they are all cut into small pieces like this, which will go around the wreath, and I have collected them together into ones that are going in the same direction. So these are bending round this way, these are bending round this way, so they will go on different wreaths. And at the moment you need a bucket for putting on any off-cuttings that you're not using. You're going to need some wire for attaching it on, and you're going to need some snips as well to cut any stems if you need to. So the first thing I'm going to do is just collect small bundles together of my greenery. So what I do is I take 3 or 4 pieces of the greenery and bundle them together like this. And I have just removed any greenery from the base of the stem. So here you can see that the greenery is going right to the bottom, and here you can see that I've just pulled off the bottom bits there so that I can get some wire around it. So we're going to take some of our floristry wire, which we've got in here, and I'm just going to wrap it around the base of the stem, and that's going to leave a longer section that I can insert into my wreath in a second. So I've wrapped the wire around the bottom stems there, leaving a length of it long. It doesn't matter where your starting point on your wreath is for inserting this first piece of greenery. So you can pop it on anywhere you like. So I'm going to just start here, just to the right of where that hook is for hanging. And I'm going to insert the wire down into the moss. Once that's secure in your moss, you now need to go and make up your next bundle, again with 3 or 4 different pieces of material from the garden. So I've got another couple of bundles made up here, and we're going to take our second one and we're going to place it over the top, overlapping the first one, but going round in the same direction. And we're just going to push that wire into the moss and it'll hold on securely there. And then we're going to take our third one and do exactly the same, so it's going round in the same direction on our wreath. And you basically just work your whole way around the wreath until you get back to the top again, putting in your bundles of greenery and wiring them in. And the most important thing to do is just to keep going in the same direction so that it looks nice and neat. So that's stage 1 of the greenery going on, and the wreath is starting to look good and looking quite full, but I now add on some extra bits just to make it even fuller and to give it a really nice shape on your door. Before I add on the extra bits, you can tweak it a little bit at this stage. So if you've got greenery sticking out that you're not quite happy with, so there's some bits here that I might just want to be in a little bit, then you can just pop a mossing pin in there or a bit of wire to secure the greenery into the place that you want it to be. And next what I'm going to do is I'm just going to add some greenery on the inside of the wreath. So I just bend in some greenery into shape around here like that on the inside. And I'm going to secure that with some wire or some mossing pins. So you can just secure it on by finding the stem and pushing that into the moss. And that will secure it for you. And I'm going to find another piece here. That's a nice bit there. And I'm going to tuck that around the inside there. And you can see now that it's really starting to look really nice and bushy and lush and full of greenery. Finally, I'm going to add some more greenery just to the outside. So you can see here that there is some mossy areas still on show. So I'm going to take more of my greenery and I'm just going to wire it into place round the edge. So from our moss base, we've now got a lovely wreath full of nice glossy green foliage, which is going to last really well on our doors through the festive season. And you can see that they vary in colour depending on the different foliage you've managed to find in the garden. This one is very dark green, this one is a mixture of the darker green and lighter green, so they can look quite different. So I now want to add some more foliage from the garden to my wreath, and for this I use things like skimmia, and I've got some cedar and some fir and some variegated holly. And what I do is I make little bundles of these foliages together to add to the wreath, and I make 4 for each wreath that I make. So these are my little bundles here that I've made up, and there's 4 of them ready to get all wired together. The next stage with making up our Christmas wreath is to decorate it with some nice things such as pine cones and orange slices and berries and bows and cinnamon. Really, you can add whatever you like to your wreath. You can add feathers, you can add lotus heads, and my customers all like different things on their wreath. And a lot of my customers come back year after year for their wreaths, and some like to have just red berries and pine cones, and some of my other customers like to have everything, cinnamon, bows, dried oranges, the works on them. So it's just up to you what works with your Christmas theme at home. I like to start by adding a few of the smaller pine cones attached together on a branch to the top of the wreath where your hook is. And these are quite good because they have a little bit of twig on either side which you can attach wire to fix it on. So I've just bent my wire over to make it into a U shape, and then that will just go over here, over the branch, and I can push it in and attach it on to the wreath. I can just add another piece of wire at this side in here to attach it on as well. The next thing I do is find 4 larger, similarly sized pine cones, and I'm going to put some wire around the base of them. So to do this, you just place your wire around the pine cone like that at the bottom, and then twist the ends together. So now I like to place those into my wreath just where I put the bundles of foliage, and they sit really nicely like that on them. And I just add 1 to each of my 4 bundles of foliage all the way around the wreath. I'm just going to take some of these wired berries and I'm going to add them into my wreath as well. So I'm going to pop 3 in here, just beside my pine cone at the little foliage bundles. And 3 look quite nice together. These little berries are handy to put on because they're pre-wired. I have previously used berries out of the garden from holly and from skimmia and things, but I find that quite often the birds have got to them before it's wreath making time in the year, so I tend to use these pre-wired red berries now. So it's starting to look really nice. And now we can add on our Christmas bow if we would like to at the bottom of our wreath. And if you look on the back where it's glued, this is where you can put through a wire to attach it on. So what you're going to do is you're just going to push your wire through from one end and out the other. So you've got wire there that's come through. So bend your wire in towards the middle and then cross over the bits of wire and twist them around each other until it looks like that. And now you've got a wire end that you can place into your wreath. So you can turn it over and we can just push the wire down into our wreath like that. And now we're going to add some of our dried orange slices. So the next bit is attaching some dried orange slices, and I put these in pairs onto my wreath, and I put 2 on one side, 2 on the other, and 2 down the bottom. And you can use wire again to just go through the orange slices, and then we can attach them onto the wreath. So I'm just putting the wire through the middle of the orange slice there, then I'm going to bend it over and I'm going to push it through again like that. It just makes a small hook in it, and then you can twist the wires around the back so they're joined together, and then they'll be ready to place into your wreath. So that's them on nice and securely. Another way that you can put your oranges onto your wreath is if you put them on like this, and you can put them on like that by putting the wire through the bottom portion and putting them on like that. One of the things I like to do is to hang up my wreath as I go along, just to see how it's looking and to see if I've got things in the wrong place. I might put some pine cones or oranges too high up or too low down compared to other ones, and I can tweak it. I can trim away any greenery that I think's in the wrong place. And so just now I think that my oranges on the right hand side here are a little bit higher than the other ones, so I'll just bring them down a tiny fraction and then it'll balance out nicely with the other side. So I want to add some cinnamon sticks to my wreath now. So what I'm going to do is I am going to attach a couple together, and I am going to attach them with some twine that I've got here. So you just need to wrap the twine around the cinnamon sticks a few times. So I've got my twine here round about now. I've wrapped it around about 5 times, and I'm now going to just tie it off in a double knot at the back. You can see there, and then I'm just going to snip off the excess twine that I've got because we don't need that. So now at the back it's just got a little bit of twine there. So once you've got your cinnamon sticks looking like this, then you can take some of your floristry wire and you can feed it through the back just like that, and then bend it into a U shape again like that and twist the stems round each other, so that you end up with it looking like that. And then you can just put that into your wreath and it'll attach on nice and securely. Got this wreath all finished now with its cinnamon and its pine cones and its berries and its bow. It's ready to be enjoyed by somebody on their front door this festive season. This is another one of my wreaths, and this time it has just got berries and cones and holly on it. No dried oranges or bows or cinnamon. Just simple and beautiful for your front door. Door wreaths you don't need to do anything to, as long as they're on your outside door and not on an inner door. They should last for at least 4 weeks, although I have had some customers who've said they've kept theirs on their door even going into February. So once you have a wreath like this made and it's not got any needles on it that are going to drop, they really can last for a very long time. I'm going to do a video soon on how to look after your wreath if you have it inside. So if you've got it on an inner door, not an outside one, or if you're using your wreath as a table arrangement, then I'm going to show you how to keep that nice and fresh and keep it looking really good right up until Christmas and New Year, when you're wanting to have it on your table to enjoy. I hope you have fun if you're making a Christmas wreath this year, and enjoy any wreaths that you've bought in from local suppliers too. They look great on your table and on your door through the festive season. I'm going to leave you now with some pictures for some inspiration if you want to have a go at home yourself. These are all wreaths that I've made over the last few years.